bring in Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, how do you feel about the pause on weapons?
Well, I care about how it ends. A couple things. Remember Afghanistan?
Sure.
Do you remember it? Don't you think it was a disaster the way that war ended?
Sure.
Okay. Don't you think Biden ignored good advice and withdrew all of our forces, and that led to the world being on fire? Do you agree with that?
I agree with it.
Yeah, well, don't do that again. So here's my view. I told Zelenskyy, President Trump is ready to do the minerals deal. Do it. Don't talk about security guarantees. That's a bridge too far. By doing business with Ukraine, we have an implicit security guarantee. We're not going to send a bunch of Americans over there and watch them get killed by the Russians and not respond. So Zelenskyy has been a wartime president. It's been very hard on his country and him. I think he deserves a lot of credit for keeping his country in the fight. They're fighting against superior numbers. They've used the weapons we've sent well. But I'd like to get a just peace, a ceasefire, and a just peace. So here's what I would say to President Zelenskyy. The way you handled the meeting was unacceptable. Hopefully we can get back on track, as do President Trump. You're absolutely right to insist that this war end, but it's got to be done honorably and justly. We don't want to end it in a way to create other wars. We don't want to end it in a way that China thinks they can take Taiwan without consequence. So to President Trump, how we end this war is going to matter long after you're out of office. And I have a lot of confidence that President Trump will end it the right way, and he will not do what Biden did in Afghanistan, end it in a terrible way.
I hear you. I don't know if you've seen this letter that went out from Zelenskyy. He wrote a long letter, it's about 5 paragraphs, one of which he says, we do really value America, how much you've done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty. We remember the moment when things changed when President Trump provided Ukraine with javelins. Our meeting in Washington at the White House did not go the way it was supposed to be. It is regrettable that it's happened this way. It is time to make things right. We would like future cooperation regarding the agreement. They want to do it. Is that enough to get President Trump to unpause?
Well, I put a thumbs up to that. I think that's a good statement, a step in the right direction. The main thing is do the minerals agreement. I've been working on this for 2 years. I tried to get Biden to do it. He just couldn't do any deal. So I showed President Trump the minerals map, I don't know, months ago, maybe a year ago. He instinctively understood this is a good opportunity for America. It did take him 30 seconds to say, wow, they're sitting on $7 or $8 trillion of critical minerals that will determine the AI economy. It's like the new oil. This deal is $500 billion to the United States. It's a great deal for Ukraine. Once we have a business relationship with Ukraine, we have a different relationship that President can talk about to the country. It's a relationship with value. The next thing I hope we can do over time is maybe keep the weapons sales flowing. If you don't want a third invasion by Russia, keep building up the Ukrainian army so they can defend themselves from a new invasion. Give them the weapons they need to make sure the Russians never do this again. That's a form of deterrence. And when it gets time to do peace and ceasefires, the Europeans should be on the ground, not us, but we could back them up. So I am hoping the statement from President Zelenskyy is a giant step toward getting us back on track. I know President Trump still wants to do the deal because it's a damn good deal for America. And I'm not out to humiliate Putin, but it cannot be a peace deal that rewards him and seen by other bad guys as you should go in and take things that don't belong to you.
So one of the things that he put in this letter says, in the first stages of a possible peace, he goes, could be fast. He goes, how about the release of prisoners and a truce in the sky, a ban on missiles, long-range drones, bombs on energy and other civilian infrastructure, and a truce in the sea. If Russia will do the same, then we want to move very fast through all next stages and to work with the U.S. to agree on a strong final deal. Is that too much to ask?
I'm going to leave it up to the Trump team. I think that's a good statement by President Zelenskyy. And I've got all the confidence in the world in President Trump. I had zero confidence in Biden. Putin actually, at the end of the day, does fear Trump. That interaction with Zelenskyy was a masterclass in standing up for America. I talked to Zelenskyy that morning before the meeting. I said, do not talk about security guarantees. Trump may say something about Russia you don't like or Putin. Just keep your eye on the prize. JD pushed back against a Polish reporter who was being very rude to President Trump. JD wasn't talking to Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy jumped in, and the rest is history. He screwed it up. I blame Zelenskyy. Having said that, it does matter how this ends. I'd love to do this deal. It'd be great for the American economy. I think Ukraine can be a valuable ally. They're the most lethal army on the continent. I think our relationship with Ukraine is very beneficial to the United States over time for many reasons. I want to end the killing, but we got to get a just peace. I don't want China to think that Putin got rewarded for this. I trust President Trump to get this right.
So Zelenskyy answered you, said maybe you're not the right person to lead the country. What exactly did you say? You said maybe he should step aside if he's going to have this attitude?
I said, listen. Yeah, I said, Churchill got beat before the end of the war. Remember that? I've always wondered how a man that we revere so much, rightfully so, could lose an election in 1945. Well, apparently, the British public saw the end of the war coming, and Churchill had only one gear. I told Zelenskyy, it's not in our interest to sell you out. Look at what happened in Afghanistan when we ended the war terribly. It's not in anyone's interest to sell out Ukraine. I'm not out to humiliate Putin, but at the end of the day, Zelensky's demonstrating an inability to envision an end of the war. And that's what rattled me. You're talking about things that are inconsistent with what we're trying to do in the Oval Office. And this statement today envisions how the war ends, not a sellout of Ukraine, but a ceasefire that leads to a permanent peace, but preceded by a major league economic deal with the United States, which gives us an interest in the future of Ukraine. To the American people, what happens in Ukraine will matter to you. Defunding the police is a stupid idea. When people rob stores and nobody goes to jail, people leave town. The town dies. You don't want Putin to take things that he agreed to leave alone in the 90s because he chose to. So this war needs to end honorably, and it needs to end quickly. And I think the statement by President Zelenskyy today envisions a stepped process that leads to the end of the war, very similar to what President Trump has envisioned.
So I wanted you to hear Zelenskyy's answer to you. Cut 9.
Lindsey Graham is a very good guy, a very nice. And speaking who must be the president and whether I shall resign, I can give him the citizenship of Ukraine. He will become the citizen of our country, and then his voice will start to gain weight, and I will hear him as a citizen of Ukraine on the topic of who must be the president. But Lindsey represents the party that fights for democratic values, and anyway, the president of Ukraine will have to be chosen not at home, at Lindsey Graham's home, but in Ukraine.
So your answer, you're a nice guy, and if you want to become a Ukrainian citizen, you can pick the president. That's his answer.
Yeah, did you see what I said?
Back?
Did you see my reply?
No.
Did you see it? No, I said,
no,
unfortunately. I said, unfortunately, till you have elections, no one has a voice in Ukraine. That's gotten 33 million views. Listen, I know Zelenskyy well. He's under a tremendous amount of pressure. I gave him what I thought was good advice. It's up to him to take it. I have no desire to be a Ukrainian citizen. I do have a desire for Ukraine to maintain its freedom, sovereignty, and dignity and be an ally of the United States. The statement from President Zelenskyy today envisioning a ceasefire and an end of the war, an appreciation for the javelins, and a real sense that Trump's the right guy, can reset everything, I hope. That's a giant step in the right direction. I've been doing this for a while. I went to Ukraine 7 or 8 times since the war started. I have an arrest warrant out for me in Russia. The first thing I said when Putin invades, I hope somebody would take him out. It's not like I'm friendly to Putin at all, but Trump is right to want to end this thing sooner rather than later. And the world in which we live in, you got to talk to both sides. And to all the Democrats who are piling on Trump, where the hell were you before Russia invaded Ukraine? Why didn't you support me with pre-invasion sanctions? Why didn't you support my bill to say Russia was a state sponsor of terrorism? If you're looking to maintain freedom and to stand up for freedom, there's two groups that I don't have any confidence in, the Europeans and the Democrats.
I hear you. By the way, how do you feel about Vladimir Putin agreeing to help Donald Trump broker a nuclear deal with Iran?
Anything that gets us to a good outcome, there's zero chance there will be a nuclear deal with Iran that leads to him abandoning his nuclear ambition to Ayatollah. He's a religious Nazi. To President Trump, I encourage you to allow Israel to use military force to destroy their nuclear program while we can. The Ayatollah is a religious Nazi. He will not take a deal and honor it. You know, Hitler didn't want a better Germany. He wanted to kill all the Jews. He wanted to take over the world. The Ayatollah, again, is a religious Nazi. He wants three things: to dominate Islam, kill all the Jews, and drive us out. I don't think you can negotiate with this guy.
What do you say to Bibi Netanyahu, who says, I'm not going to a phase two, which means I have to abandon Gaza? He's not comfortable leaving Gaza or ending the war with Hamas in power. What's the outcome? How's that going to go?
Here's the outcome. Here's how phase two should be. Hamas can leave and have safe passage to countries that will take them. Israel takes over and will replace Hamas with a better form of government sponsored by the Arabs. If they don't take that deal, there is no phase two. There is no way we can leave Hamas in charge and Israel ever be safe. So what I think will happen here soon is that the extension of phase one, buying more time to get more hostages, has been rejected by Hamas. It's now time for Israel to go back onto the ground and wipe them out like we did with the Germans and the Japanese. Then, over time, get the Arabs involved to rebuild Gaza.
What do you do with the rest of the hostages?
Hope that the pressure that you put on Hamas will lead to their release. But, this is a horrible spot for a country to find itself in. You've got living hostages, and you got, people have died, and you want your dead and your living back. But Hamas cannot stay. All the people that were slaughtered on October the 7th, 1200, the future of Israel cannot allow Hamas to stay. So if you got to pick, here's your choice. Make sure Hamas can never do October 7th again. Destroy them militarily and politically. That's the only way this war can end well for Israel. Then come up with a plan, working with the Arabs, to do what we did in Germany and Japan, de-radicalize the population over time. My heart breaks for the hostages and their families. I hope all of them come back. But Israel cannot afford to do a deal that allows Hamas to stay in power, period.
How do you feel about recognizing Syria's government? I mean, this seems to be a terrorist government, but better than Assad. How do you view it?
Too early. Put conditions on what they should do and see if they'll do it. See how they treat the Alawites, a religious minority. See how they treat women. Because you go from, everybody's talking about wearing suits, right? Well, Zelenskyy didn't wear a suit. I don't care what he wears as long as we get a just peace. And putting Golani in a suit doesn't do it for me. It's what you do. It's not what you wear.
Finally, what's the difference between this Trump and the 45th president of the United States?
A guy who has learned from his experiences, who is ready to go on day one, who has been watching the world fall apart and has a plan to fix it. So it's no accident he's off to a good start. He's been thinking about this for a long time. A word of warning here. I know the House wants to do one big, beautiful bill, count me in. The Homeland Security people run out of money in about 3 to 4 weeks. The continuing resolution, if it's extended to September 30th, that's Biden's appropriation bill. There's not a dime to build the wall. There's no money for additional detention beds, and ICE gets cut $2 billion. We need to get money into the Tom Holman now. The $175 billion would do everything we need to do over a 4-year period to secure the border. If we don't watch it, we're going to run out of money and lose all the momentum we gained on immigration, and that would be a tragedy.
All right. Hopefully there's some give there, and the Republicans pick up the pace in the House. Hey, Senator, it's always a masterclass in information for the audience. Thanks so much.
Thanks, pal. Bye.